Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Dynamics GP Coffee Break SmartLists webinar. My name is Tess, and I'm the facilitator today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer questions at the end of the session. It will be recorded and posted on our blog, as well as shared with you later this week. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Don Mcnulty, who is a solutions architect on our Dynamics GP team at Encore. And Don, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Tess. So today what we're going to talk about is a bit about SmartLists, and I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been using GP since version 2.2, which is quite a while ago. And SmartLists has come a long way over the years, and there's lots of things that some people just don't know that's there. So hopefully we'll fill in some of the blanks on things that you can do with SmartLists and things like that. So I will just get started here. Okay, first off, we did the introductions, and thanks, Tess, for doing that. In GP, we've got SmartList. SmartList is probably the most used piece of software inside GP for accountants and for people, because it allows you to get data out that you can then use for further analysis. A couple of things that you need to know. One is you can set up your default ones. There's a bunch of default ones that come with GP. There's a few that you can change so that if you're always adding the same field to every single time you do it, you can add it as a default so that you don't have to worry about it. SmartList, you can add columns. You can add columns that are defined by GP. So GP provides you with the SmartList, and underneath each SmartList lies a view in SQL. Those views in SQL can be any field in that view can be added to a SmartList by using the columns piece. The go-tos. There are many go-tos attached to a lot of the different SmartLists. Those go-tos allow you to jump directly from the record that you're on to another screen inside GP, whether that be something like customer maintenance or vendor maintenance or accounts receivable transaction. You can also have multiple ones where you can select what you want it to do. So it may be that the default does one, and I'll talk about that. And then, of course, we can save them as favorites. Once we've built a SmartList that we use and we use it every day, we don't want to have to rebuild it every day. We want to be able to save it. So they call them favorites. It's not, the word isn't save, but the word is favorites, and I'll show you that. Under searches, when you've got lots of data, sales order processing data, transactional data, you may have hundreds of thousands of records. You obviously don't want to wait for 100,000 records to come on a SmartList. What you want to do is be able to restrict it based on a date range or based on some other piece of information that you have. You need to understand Boolean logic. Now, Boolean logic, for those of us that remember our grade 11 and grade 12 math, is the ands and the ors. So I want A and B, or I want A or B. So either both have to be right, or one has to be right. And you can do that kind of logic inside SmartList. It is only all ands or all ors inside SmartList itself, but that is the one limitation that GP provides us. Then there's record counts. By default, all record counts are set on the setup, which we'll talk about at the very top. We usually set it to 1,000, and the reason we do that is so that it doesn't take forever to time out before you go, oh my goodness, I didn't really need that. Destinations. What do we do with the data once we get it on the screen and go, this is really great? Some people will print it, although very few. I would say 99% of all SmartLists generated end up in the bottom one there, which is Excel. We dump it out to Excel, and then we can run pivot tables and things like that against it quite easily. If we have enough time today, we'll also touch on what they call works. You can grab specific spreadsheets and append the data to it so that you don't have to rebuild your Excel pivot table each time that you do that same report. I'm not sure we're going to get there because there's quite a bit to cover. So I'm going to, without too much more, I'm going to go on and I'm going to do a demo on this so that you can see what I'm talking about. So let me just put my screen here to here. So SmartList itself, this is SmartList. Now, a couple of ways of getting to SmartList right off the bat. How do you open it? underneath Microsoft Dynamics GP, there's a SmartList button here that will bring up the screen here. You can also, if underneath your toolbar, you've added the standard one here, if you add the standard one here, you will get this button here at the corner. And this button at the corner also opens up SmartList. I like to have the SmartList there because I use it all the time. So from here, inside the corner here, we have a number of SmartLists. When I open up the SmartList, these are all the default ones that come out of the box from GP. You probably have a whole bunch of favorites already saved on your system. But the big thing on this is that every one that ends with a star, as you see these ones with the stars, anything with a star is the one that GP wrote. So you can then use those as well. I'm going to deal with just the standard star one, and we come up and we look. Now, don't do that. I was just in there seconds ago. Now, one thing to check here is always check the process monitor, see if anything's in there. Why is it always not all of a sudden? That's fine. My apologies. Start this. There we go. So inside here, we get our SmartList, and you'll notice at the bottom corner here, it's counting up. It's going to count up to 1,000. It's actually only going to count up to 103 because that's all the SmartLists that I actually have in my system, 105 customers. And I'm going to be using the customers as my demo data for today, simply to keep it fairly small. So this is what the default looks like out of the box. So when I look at this, this gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different fields. Now you can say to yourself, well, really for me in my particular company, the customer class is one of the most important pieces of information that I need to have. So we'd like to have customer class on the default SmartList, so I don't have to keep adding it. To add it is quite simple. So we can go into under administration, which is under administration, and under setup, we have a SmartList options button. And when we click on the SmartList options, it will bring up a list of all the default SmartLists. There they are there. And I'm going to grab customers, and you'll see that there's the 9 pieces. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put on the customer class, and I'm going to take off the, I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to take off the addresses. And I'm going to go OK. Now when I do that, and now I go back to my SmartList, and I click off of SmartList, and then back onto SmartList. And you'll notice that the addresses have gone. I did not save my class, but that's where you can change them. You can add different things inside there. The other thing that's in there is the number of records that you see. So when I hit my search, when I hit my column criteria, I can now add my different columns. So I can go into here, I can click the add, and I can scroll down through here. This is a list of all things. There's my customer class. I click OK, and I click OK on that. And now my customer class is now here. So now I've got my customer class that I need. If I wanted to move it, again, inside the columns, I can easily just grab the column. Now in version, up to version 28 to 18.3, I believe it was, the boxes weren't here. You would just highlight this and hit the up arrow. Now you must actually select it. So it depends on the version that you're using. And we can move it up to the top and go OK. And once I've done that, I can now sort by customer class. If I just click on the customer class, it will then sort it accordingly. Okay, so then it will put it into the sort order. When it finishes the 105 records, it will then complete the sort, and there it is there. Got a couple without classes, which isn't very good, but I've got the other data based on that. So at this point here, I can now do whatever it is that I require from that point of view. So that's how I add columns. And I can add more columns. So for instance, well, that's a nice smart list, except it only tells me who they are and what city they're in. What I really want to know is how much money they owe me. So I'm going to get rid of this node. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to go add into here. I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to add my customer balance. And it is underneath, it happens to be under customer balance. There it is there. And I'll leave it right where it is, and I'll go OK. So now that gives me a list of everybody who has data. Now you'll notice inside here that I have a few zeros. That's because obviously they have no outstanding accounts receivable. You go, well, that's great if I got 7,000 customers and only 500 of them owe me money, I don't want to see a list of 7,000 customers. So how do I do the searches? So the searches themselves would be something that we would need to do. When I hit the search, I get a criteria that looks like this. So underneath here, I've got a column name. In this case, I'm going to go customer balance. And I'm going to say is not equal to 0, just to get rid of all the zeros. And I'm going to go OK. So at this point, this is just sorting it like this. 97 customers. I can click on the customer balance, and that shows me that, oh, well, these 3 people we owe money to, because we refunded them more than they owed us, and the rest of them all owe me cash. And if I want to know who owed me the most, I just click it again, and it'll sort it in the other direction. So that would be the highest return there. So that gives me the information that I need. From here, now when I'm in columns inside here, or when I'm in the search criteria, you'll notice at the bottom here, this is where the record count is. So this record count is set to 1,000. It will stop at 1,000 each time I run this report. If I've got more than 1,000 records that I have to have, what I do is you would just go like this, put in 9s, and then it will automatically fill in the largest number that it can be. And if I click tab on that, you'll notice that 1,410,065,407. That is the number of records that Excel can handle. Okay, so if you get more than that, you shouldn't be dumping it out to Excel because it will bog down your Excel. This one here is the Boolean match. There's a match all or match one or more. Now that means that it's column A, and so for instance, if I go like this and I add into here and I go where the state is equal to, we'll use B, whoops. Equal to BC, we go OK. All I get is the ones that are in BC. Okay, because of that, these particular ones are sitting here, which is fine. That's the and. If I go into the search and I change this to or, then I will still get the 103 records or 97 records because I get BC or a balance due. Now, if there was no balance due for the customer, then the 0 would have shown up. In this particular case, it did not, but it could have. So that's the difference, is that it either this has to be BC or this number has to be not 0. So depending on what you're looking for, sometimes that's a very powerful feature that you can use. This will match one or more. One of the reasons that I use this one a lot is if I'm looking for a transaction and I go, well, the transaction's $114.32. I can go, the credit balance is equal to $114.32, or the debit balance is equal to $114.32, and it will find any reference to that inside your system. And that way, if you're looking for a specific journal entry or something like that and don't know much about it besides the dollar value because you're out, then that is something that I've run and found it quite useful to find things. So it'll all of a sudden it'll pop up. Oh, here's the credit for it, because you don't know that it's a full credit, you don't know it's a full debit, so you can look for both at the same time. One thing I will mention about dates is that inside here we don't have any date fields, but if I was to grab a date field, so if I go into cancel, so I'm going to add a date field here. So I'm going to go into columns and I'm going to go add. And the last, let's go for the last transaction date. There we go. Okay. We go okay. This just shows the last date that there was a transaction against it. So now if I wanted to see all the people that have bought from me prior to 2027, my date is in 2027, I can go into my search and I can go customer balance is that. I can grab my last transaction date and I can go less than, and I could enter a date and go in less than 01/01/27. So there it is there, and I go okay. And now it should have, why did it not do that? So in here, I have the ability of saying in the beginning of the month or whatever it happens to be. Let's just go is less than or between and so it's showing all 98 customers, and the reason it's showing all 98 customers is that I still have the match one or more. So if I go match all and I go okay, so now I will shrink down to only those in 2027. I can also, underneath my search, change this to different periods. So I can say I want this from the beginning of the calendar year to the end of the calendar year, or I could say is less than the beginning of the calendar year. And if I go okay, now I've only got 24s and 25s, 23, 24, 25. So I have no 2027s. So you can do that, and the advantage of that particular feature inside here is that if you're doing a date listing inside a sales transaction report, you can say, give me last month's sales. You can use between the beginning of the previous period and things like that. So inside here, you have the beginning of the period, beginning of the month, and things like that. So you can do things that begin and end. That way you can predefine in your search what it is that it's going to do, and as the date changes, the data changes as well. This also works as you saw, if you saw my last coffee break, also works inside GP reporting as well. So it's exactly the same logic inside there. So from inside here, we've got okay. So inside here, we got our however many transactions that is. So these are 56 customers that haven't bought from me for a long time, but they still owe me money. So we should probably be collecting this, but this is sample data. Go-tos. So on each and every one of these, there are go-tos attached. If I double click one of these, any one of them, when I double click it, it will open up a window. In this particular case, it opens up the customer maintenance. But that's not all the go-tos. At the top, there's a go-to button here, and you'll see that there's a number of them listed in here. So I can either go to the view, which takes me to either the transaction that I'm looking at, or the customer in this case. I can also do a customer inquiry saying, oh, well, there's $80,000 outstanding. Let's find out what it is. So this is the inquiry on the customer. Now, the inquiry on the customer doesn't let me edit the customer. And then if I go into the go-to again, I got transaction inquiry, and this will bring up a list of all the transactions. And if I go to my open transactions only, we go redisplay. There's my open transactions. which if I've been doing a good job of clearing my paid accounts, it will actually be the $80,714. So I can take a look at each of these invoices, and I can see inside here that 68,000 of the 73 is still outstanding from 4/12. Okay. Now, so that by itself is what's going on inside the smart list. The other option that we have, of course, is that we can hit the Excel button. And when we hit the Excel button, it will take that and it will dump it out to Excel. It'll start Excel. I already started Excel, so it's there, and it will then pop up and populate the field. So this is now a population of all that data. So there it is there. I can now run subtotals and things like that against it. Because of the way that SQL is stored inside SQL, you will always get 5 decimals coming out. And the reason for that is for speed. If they try and format it, slows down the export. Now, for those of us who have used SmartList a lot, we know that the speed is something that we always worry about. We want to make sure that when I go refresh, I have to wait for it down at the bottom here to count up to 56. That takes a few seconds. And then when I hit the Excel button, it takes a few seconds to go out. For 56 items, it's nice and quick. But if I've got 10,000 items, you hit the go and go get yourself a cup of coffee. And then you come back and then you hit the Excel button and it dumps it out to Excel and you wait for it and then you drink your coffee. So there are other options which we'll be covering off in future coffee breaks. Can't do it today. Things like Excel report and SSRS is another way of getting the same kind of data out. Talking about 922. Okay, so on the columns to go to favorites. When I'm adding things to this, now other things that you can do a letter merge with Word, and this allows you to prepare collection letters and things like that. So there is a collection letter that will take this list and send a collection letter, and it will create a Word document, a mail merge, so that you can print them all off and send them out. They don't currently email. Okay, so they do come out as one big document that you then have to print out and then you can put in envelopes and send away. That's what it was originally for. So favorites. Underneath the favorites, when I do this, this is customers by last trans date. Something like this. I can make it visible to everybody. I can make it visible only to the one company if you've got multiple companies. You can make it to the user class. All users could be in a user class. This is not as useful as it used to be. And then I'm by user ID, which means it's just for me. I'm going to put it through to my system, and I'm going to hit the add button. Down here on the add button, I have 2 choices. I can add a favorite or I can add a reminder. Reminder will make it show up on the home screen, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Add favorite will just add it to the list on the left-hand side here. So it's going to show up right in here. So I'm going to hit the add favorite, like so, and there we are there. So now when I go back to here and I look, you'll see I've got customers by last transaction date. So if I was to click back onto this one, which now brings me back to the very original one, if I click on this and then go to by transaction date, I will then get back that same format. This allows me to run the same one each time. And now I can hit Excel. If it's the next day, it'll show me the new balances so I know who to phone. Basically, it's telling me I got to phone Contuso because Contuso owes me $80,000. So that's kind of what we needed to talk about today. Now, there is a print button up here, and that will send it out to a printer. Like I said, I know very few people that send this stuff out to a printer. Okay, it's mostly done directly to an Excel file and then worked on from there. This export import button at the top, I just wanted to talk about this, is that there are export solutions and import solutions, so you can export and import them. And inside here, you have some different pieces inside here. This is just another list of these same buttons. But inside here, we have an export solution. And when you open up the export solution, it allows you to prepare a preparation macro. And what that means is that it does the macro would record what it is that you want to do, i.e. to create a pivot table. You could then create the pivot table in the completion macro. So at completion, it will run the macro. The macro then runs and then pushes out it already done. And you can record those. You can record those macros in Excel is how you record them. So that's how you do it. So that's the name of the document. So that's what that is. I don't have time today to do that. All right, what time we got? 9:25. Tess, we're on until 9:30 or 9:25?
If you're all right, we could open it up to any questions.
Sure, why don't we open it up to questions?
Awesome. Sounds good. We can do that for the next few minutes. So thanks, Dawn. If anyone has any questions, you can enter them into the control panel because we have a few minutes left. The first one so far is, are views specific to a user or can everyone see them?
That depends on when you save the favorite. When you save the favorite, you're visible too. Now, you can restrict the actual full view, in other words, the customer view at the security level inside GP. But once they have access to it inside SmartList, if they create their own SmartList like this, they could then create it and go visible to either everyone across all companies, just for everybody inside the one company, or to myself only. So if I wrote one that's only good for me, I could do user ID, nobody else would see it. The advantage is that nobody else can do anything to it, so it doesn't get out of whack for you the next time you use it because somebody changed it.
Okay, great. The next question is, what can we do about increasing the speed?
Tune in next month for Excel reports. There's not much I can do about increasing the speed of it. The internal speed of it is exactly what it is. So as you've seen, as people know SmartList, they know that it takes a long time to do large amounts of data. So the solution is, if you're running the same SmartList over and over again, we use Excel reports for that, and you can publish these out to Excel. And when we publish them, you'll notice that at the top here, there's a publish button at the very top. Depending on the type that you're writing, we can do a publish. And when we do that publish, it will automatically, you can create Excel reports which run, you can get 100,000 records in about 6.5 seconds. So, which is fast, should be fast enough.
Sounds good. Another question says, I have created a smart list and it disappeared. Can others delete my view?
Yes, they can. And unless you've password protected it here, by putting a password on it, they can delete it. So yes, and that's the disadvantage of putting it against the system, because somebody else looks at it and goes, oh, nobody needs this smart list, and they delete it. And then you go back to try and use it and it's not there anymore. So yes, so they've added a password there, so you can add a password so that you can lock it, or you can put it visible to just yourself.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Don. Those are all of the questions that I see. So if we could pop back over to the PowerPoint.
Yep.
And wrap things up. I'm going to add 2 links to the chat. One is to our events page, which we have 3 more Dynamics GP coffee breaks in this reporting series that you can register through our events page for those from March till April. And the other link is where you can set your email preferences and opt into our monthly and quarterly emails so you can stay in the know about upcoming events and new blog articles.
Great. And I did say that I was going to cover Excel reports the next time. Actually, I'm going to cover SmartList Designer the next time to create smart lists that don't already exist, and then I'll do Excel reports on them in the April timeframe.
Yeah, that sounds great.
But if you need that speed right away, give us a call. We can arrange a training session to show you how to use Excel reports that are available directly from GP.
For sure. Alrighty, thank you, Dawn, and thank you for sharing that today, and thank you everyone for joining us, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks all.